So my name is Laurie Anderson, and I'm running for City Council in Ward 4 to protect the health and safety of their residents, to provide a more representative and transparent government, and to protect the open space. This is the seat that's currently held by our current council member Krieger, who is now running for mayor, so that seat is open. A little bit about my background. I am originally from the Midwest. I was born in Minnesota and attended the University of Minnesota, and I have a degree with a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering with a summa cum laude, and after graduating, I moved to Wisconsin to work for a product realization company where I designed concept to reality products for manufacturability. And my work is very diligent and meticulous, which has been a big benefit in this oil and gas. Now, much of what you're going to hear is going to sound a lot like Jean, only I did not copy her presentation. I also forgot I am married with 5 children. Their ages 8 to 17. Some of you know my children. You've seen them speak at council meetings and at House and Senate hearings down at the state. We are sort of an activist kind of family, I guess. And the best ones were when they were actually speaking out for their generation, and it was pretty amazing. I am pleased to announce that I have been endorsed by Congressman Joe Neguse and our own Representative Matt Gray. They have seen my efforts at the state, working on public policy, and also my work here in Broomfield on efforts such as Proposition 301, and I also have the support of Councilmember Krieger. It was noted to me something about my activism and that I'm an activist. I took that personally at first, thinking that didn't sound exactly right, until I read the definition that it's someone who campaigns to bring about political or social change, and that's absolutely who I am. So I'm going to quickly go through my 3 issues. Protecting our health and safety is one of the highest ones for me. This was kind of dumped on us back in 2016 when extraction proposed 140 wells right near my community. We had no choice but to get involved. I took notes, so I don't forget where I am. So one of the first things I did was I met the Vondersex early on, and they were some of the founding people of Anthem Clean Air and Water. We quickly grew into Broomfield Clean Air and Water. This was truly a grassroots organization, and we thought that with enough residents involved that we could change the minds of council members. That was not true, because they said their hands were tied at the state and we had to go to the state level. So that's where we went. And I will try to keep this really short because you've all heard this oil and gas story many, many times. But the legislative change does not come easy. I met with Representative Joe Salazar, Representative Matt Gray back in 2016 going into 2017. It turned out that one of the biggest issues facing these communities was that we do not show up at the state. We didn't testify. They didn't know. We weren't being heard. So we changed that. Through people like Jean and myself and others, we started showing up and we started testifying. In the meantime, in 2018, I was one of the leaders of Broomfield Health and Safety First to pass Proposition 301 to protect the health and safety of our communities. That was a 57% vote saying we want to protect our health and safety. However, we haven't been able to do much with it because there's still some fears at the level of the council. But we really do need to protect our health and safety. So leading into 2017, 2018, we knew every bill that we brought forward was going to fail. It was inevitable due to the makeup of the Senate. But we persisted. And going into 2019, we had a Democratic trifecta, and we knew the timing was right. So we began to write our legislative priorities. One of the things I did, I was asked to put this in a format that people could understand and bring to their representatives and senators. So we created the Safe and Healthy Communities Legislative Priority Booklet. This includes much of what we had failed in 2017 and 2018, and this booklet became seriously a very helpful tool at the state. And as you all know, we did pass 181. It changed the mission to protect the health and to regulate oil and gas to protect the health and safety instead of continue to foster it. So it was an amazing win. 181 does not, however, apply to the current 84 wells. So we are still facing this situation up on the north side of Broomfield and midway down. So we are now at a crossroads, and we need to determine new direction for Broomfield. Despite the many efforts we've made, this fracking just keeps moving forward. We have active lawsuits going on. The federal judge has ruled that extraction is moving forward at their own risk. That could be stopped at any point in time. But right now, all we have is the ability to try to enforce what's been approved and to try to prevent what's coming. So I do a lot of reading, I follow regulations, I read the operator agreement while people are watching TV. One of the things that I worked on with Pat Talbot was a citizen-led risk analysis that got the city to actually stand up and take notice and contract with DNVGL and actually do that hazardous risk assessment that showed, despite it not being an analysis, it still showed that we had some serious issues here. And then more recently, I was paying attention to the Tier 4 engines and how critical those were through an action with Wild Earth Guardians. And I read the operator agreement again, and it says that when they're commonly available, that the operator will use Tier 4 engines. Well, they are commonly available. They're only engines they've made since 2015 when the EPA required that. The city kind of balked at it, said they couldn't do anything, so I called up Cummins Engineering, and I asked them, how long have these been available? And since 2015, all they needed was the serial numbers, and they could start to retrofit the current design. And there was nothing, they had the same footprint. It was easy to change over, and once the city finally agreed to pursue this, it only took a couple weeks to actually get those Tier 4 engines. It reduced emissions by 80% for particulate matter and 45% on NOx. So it was a and we are now continuing to monitor sites like the Acme site is just north of Highway 7, just north of the Anthem Ranch. Again, the same people will be heavily impacted, but under 181, and with persistence at the state level, I do believe they will deny that site soon. So hopefully we can continue that. Now, this comes to representation of the residents. We showed up in force, hundreds of us, multiple council meetings. We spoke out in force. 57% of us voted yes on 301, and yet the city council seemingly doesn't hear us. So representation of the people, being transparent, voting the way your constituents want you to vote are absolutely critical. And that is what I want to do. I want to listen to the complex issues and use that same thoughtful approach on oil and gas for all future issues. And a big one for me, and many here can relate to this, is that many decisions were made in executive session that didn't have to occur in executive session, and we need to work on that and somehow coming out of executive session to let the people know the things that didn't truly belong in there to be transparent. Growth and sustainability and future planning is huge. We have a couple of huge lands left to be developed. One of them is North Park, and there's not a whole lot of land left to be developed, so we really need to be intentional about this future development. And one of the concerns up in that area is we just got done passing a school referendum to finally alleviate the overcrowding on the north side. The school that was just built will only meet the needs of the Anthem area, and we don't want to find ourselves back in the same predicament again in a couple years, so we need to be planning accordingly for schools and future growth and widening of roads. We've got Highway 7, 160th, Huron, Sheridan, they're all going to be overcrowded just like 144, so traffic is another area of focus. And then our open space. We pay for that with our taxpayer dollars. That is our open space. For anyone who has driven down Huron Street, they have seen the destruction. They have seen the pigging units that are now a permanent fixture there. It is not okay. That is our open space. It should not have been given over to extraction. However, there are 4 simple words in our current municipal code that allows that use. We wanted to get those 4 words out of there. We thought it would go to the vote of the people, and in the last minute we found out that it will not be going to a vote of the people. We are the only ones that can protect that open space from future oil and gas development, so I will work hard to also protect the open space. And I look forward to hearing from many of you, hearing what the issues are, so I can truly represent the people here. And I can also use financial support, which is greatly appreciated because I want to be funded by hundreds of people and represent the people. Again, my name is Laurie Anderson. I'm running in Ward 4. Thank you.
want to make a plug for all of you in how impressed I am at your dedication, your diligence, your intelligence, your going in depth, and trying to make practical solutions out of this mess. My question is, how do you do it? How do you stay so motivated and so involved when it's been grueling?
Okay, that was a question about how do we do all of this with this serious, never-ending workload.
Yes.
Do you want the truth? Everything I do is focused on this community. A lot of the things at home come after, and I very carefully figure out my children's activities around oil and gas so that I'm purposefully dropping them off at the exact right time so I can head to the exact right meetings. And it's a serious balancing act, and you don't want to come to my house uninvited because it's probably not in order. And I do not watch TV, I read operator agreements.
And that's, I would guess that's because you care so much. You care about your children. You care about this community. So your motivation is coming from love, that deep caring.
I would say this is a community that formed around oil and gas. I know hundreds of people in Broomfield, and the only reason I connected with them was because of oil and gas, and we share a bond that cannot be broken. It's that important to us, and taking care of this community. One of the things that keeps me motivated is that the emissions from oil and gas are significant. 200 tons per year of NOx and VOCs going into the air off of each of these pads is too much. There's loopholes that have to be closed. We have had 24 ozone non-attainment days in the last 65 days. It's too many. It's too many for people suffering from asthma, the elderly population, the young population, everyone. I mean, this is something we have to address, and it's for my children, for this community, for everyone. It's that important. Oh, sure. Right, I would say we could all use funding. It's absolutely, because we do not know how much oil and gas money is going to come in. Thank you.
And canvassing.
And volunteers. Yes, volunteers are critical to everyone. I just saw a donation in one drop. Yes, Lacey. So we have the biggest donor sitting in the middle of the room right now.
All eyes on her.
Not me. You're not Lacey.
So Lois brings up a good point. You are not a single issue candidate. You brought up the traffic issue that we're facing to the north there. Do you have plans for that? Do you have how would you handle some of these traffic conflicts that even Jean brought up in along 287? Do you have any ideas?
I do not have specific plans. I know they need to be addressed. If people have great ideas, that would be helpful. I do know that moving forward, for anyone who has seen the presentation for the new development on North Park, they're moving towards walkability and bus routes. So there is definitely some focus that needs to be looked at as we try to reduce our dependency on vehicles and try to find public transportation. And also, the more we emphasize walkability and the ability to ride bikes places, that is going to help reduce the traffic, but it's not going to go away. So widening roads is important. But clearly that takes tax dollars and time, so it's also being, as a community, being diligent about when we're driving and trying to avoid rush hour. And I don't, my husband sits in the Dillon Road backup every day on his way home from work, but it's just, I don't know how to solve that one.
You have an electric car.
I do have an electric car and it's awesome. But it still takes space on the road. Yes, you do.
So I do watch entirely too much TV. So I have a curiosity, but I have not done the homework, so I thought I'd just ask an expert. So the natural gas that's harvested from the fracking in Broomfield, do you know how much of that is exported? And if so, if you do know, where to? Because I know we're not benefiting that much from it.
Right, so that you need to look at oil and gas on a global market. This is not something that what comes out of the ground in Broomfield goes into a midstream pipeline and leaves this area. The oil and gas that's coming up off the Livingston site is not going to the gas station and to the cars here, and it's not benefiting us. It is a global scale, and also at somewhat at a state level, but we are I've heard these numbers, I don't have the exact years, but we are actually a net exporter of both oil and gas now. These are things if we want to look at this from a conservative standpoint, we should be keeping this for our own uses in the future in a time of great need. But I don't know the exact percentages, sorry.
Oh, that's
about
okay.
88%.
88% is exported.
88% is exported out of Colorado. To where? Everywhere. I mean, all over the country and exported globally.
If I could, may I quickly?
Yes, go ahead, Kevin.
So we are a net exporter of oil and natural gas since 2017, oil since 2018. We're an exporter as a country. So when they come into new projects like this, none of it is for domestic use. 100% is for export. Over the last 5 to 7 years, we've exported as a country, which really means companies have exported to about 14 other countries, some friendly like the UK, some not so friendly like Turkey or Egypt. But 100% is for export, and the reason that was done is because there were actually lobbyist groups like Heritage, right-wing groups that lobbied to open our energy market to the world because it would drive up prices, because it drives up the demand for our energy if everybody can buy it. And driving up prices is good for the energy companies, obviously. And what they said is also to create jobs, because if it sells for more and is more profitable, more companies start up, like extraction, a startup, and they start drilling, and they hire people. And so it's possible it has created jobs. However, it's exporting 2 of our most valuable natural resources to other countries, and they're getting it right next to our homes and schools, uphill from drinking water. We breathe the airborne toxins for their profit. None of it is for our use. 0 is for our use, literally.
And one more point to add to that, beyond just the exporting, is that per Broomfield's own calculations, it's actually on the city site, over the course of the time from like 2015 to 2030 or 2040 when they did this calculation, the income that Broomfield will receive from oil and gas, along with their expenditures, we actually come out minus $3 million. Broomfield does not benefit from oil and gas.
One small little more plug. Laurie is going to be, you don't know this yet because I've seen the documentary, but you're part of this documentary that's going to come out on August 20th on Amazon Prime, talking about export. And so part of our stories here in Colorado is going to be told as part of that documentary. It's going to be released, and hopefully we'll have a release party soon, like a premiere party, and so we'll be excited to see Laurie and that as well.
Okay, and what is the name of the documentary?
Come in.
Blowouts. I'm trying to remember the subtitle, but it's basically, gambling on export. And we're exporting to other countries, they really document this, we're exporting to other countries that are moving faster towards renewable energy than we are.
Okay, so the documentary crew that followed us around is Blowout.
Yes.
So look for that one.
Blow out rather than blow out.
Blowout.